My mother disowned me on a Saturday evening in March, in the middle of her 55th birthday party, in front of 47 relatives who had come from 4 cities to celebrate her. She did it quietly. That was the thing that stayed with me longest. She didn't shout. She leaned close and she said, very softly, so that only I could hear, "You are not my son anymore. Leave this house and don't come back." And then she turned to her guests and smiled, and accepted a gift from my aunt, and the party continued. I left. I walked out through the front door of the house I had grown up in, past the garden my father had planted before he died, down the road I had walked to school on for 12 years, and I kept walking until the party sounds were gone, and there was only the city around me and the specific silence of someone who has just been removed from the only family they had. I was 26 years old. I had told her something true about myself, and she had responded with the quietest, most devastating version of a door closing that I had ever experienced. I want to tell you what happened in the 8 years between that evening and the morning she stood on the pavement outside my company's building and looked up at the billboard and froze. Because those 8 years are the story. And the story is not about revenge. It is about what you build when the people who were supposed to be your foundation remove themselves, and what you find in the building, and who is standing beside you when the building is done. Part 1. The house and what I left behind. My name is Aditya Menon, and I grew up in a house in Chennai that smelled like filter coffee and jasmine, and the particular warm dust of a South Indian summer. My father had died when I was 19, a cardiac event, sudden, the kind of loss that restructures everything before you have had time to understand what has been restructured. My mother had carried everything after that with the specific strength of a woman who had decided that strength was the only available option. She was not a cruel woman. I want to say this at the beginning and mean it. She was a woman who had grown up in a world with very specific walls and who had never, in 55 years, been given a reason to question those walls. She loved me in the way she knew how to love, through feeding and providing and worrying, and the particular South Indian maternal language of concern that is also devotion. She had built her life around a picture of what her son would become, and had spent 26 years maintaining that picture with the careful attention of someone who needed it to be true. What I told her at her birthday party had made the picture impossible. I had not planned to tell her at the party. I had planned to tell her quietly, the following week, in the kitchen over coffee the way we talked about real things. But her brother, my uncle, had made a joke at the dinner table about finding me a wife, a good girl from a good family, and the joke had landed on me in the specific way of things that are meant lightly but carry weight, and I had looked at my mother and I had said quietly that there was something I needed to tell her. She had brought me to the corridor, and I had told her, and she had said what she had said, and I had left. I want to tell you about the year after, because it matters. I had very little. I had a small amount of savings, a degree in computer science that I had not fully used yet, a phone, a backpack with 2 days of clothes, and a name that was, at that moment, not attached to anything in particular. I had also, and this turned out to be the most important thing, a clarity that I had not had before. There is something that happens when the worst possible version of a thing you were afraid of actually occurs. The fear had been present for years, the fear of telling, the fear of losing, the specific dread of the door closing. And then the door had closed and I was on the other side of it and I was still standing. Not well, not happily, not without pain, but standing. The thing I had feared had happened and I had not collapsed. That information changed what I thought was possible. I had spent the year after the party moving forward with the specific momentum of someone who has nothing to protect anymore. I had taken the job I had been hesitating on, a startup in Bangalore that was doing interesting things with data architecture, underpaid and overworked, and exactly right for someone who needed to learn everything fast. I had worked the way people work when the work is the only stable thing, completely, totally, with the entirety of what I had. I had also, in that year, found the people who became my actual family. Part 2. Vikram. Vikram Anand came into my life 8 years ago through the startup, where he was a senior engineer, and I was a junior one, and we were both, for different reasons, putting everything into the work. He was 30 then, 4 years older than me. He had grown up in Hyderabad, had a family that was complicated in different ways from mine, present but not understanding, loving but not seeing, the specific situation of someone who had not yet said the thing that needed saying and was living with the weight of not saying it. He had been at the startup for 2 years when I arrived. He knew the code base, the culture, the people, and the specific landscape of building something in the early years of a company when everything is uncertain. And the uncertainty is also the most interesting thing about it. We had started talking because the work required it. We were on the same architecture project, and the project required communication. The communication had, within a week, expanded past the work in the way it does when two people discover that they think about things in similar ways. He was, I want to describe him accurately, someone who had thought carefully about everything and had arrived at real opinions rather than performed ones. He had opinions about the work and about how it should be done and about what technology was for. He had read more than most engineers I had met and had opinions about what he had read. He was funny in the specific way of people who are also serious, the humor emerging from the same intelligence that produced the seriousness, related rather than separate. He was also someone who was carrying something. I could see it the way you see it when you are carrying something yourself, the specific weight of an unresolved thing, present in the way a person moves through their life. We did not talk about it for months. We talked about the work and about the city and about the things that two people talk about when they are becoming friends, and the friendship has not yet reached the layer where the real things are said. The real things took time. The time was worth it. Part 3, the building. I left the startup after 18 months and started building something of my own. This is always easy to say, and I want to be honest about how hard it actually was. I had a technical idea, a platform for data integration that I had been developing in the margins of my work at the startup, something I believed was genuinely better than what existed and that I thought there was a market for. I had no co-founder, no funding, no office. I had the clarity I had acquired on the night I left my mother's house and the specific knowledge that the worst thing had already happened and I was still standing. I built the first version in a rented room in Bangalore, working 16 hours a day for 5 months. Not dramatically, just the ordinary, extraordinary work of building a thing from nothing, one problem at a time, one solution at a time, with the patience that the work required. Vikram had left the startup 3 months after I did. He had gone back to Hyderabad for a period, the family situation, the things he had been carrying, and had come back to Bangalore 6 months later with the expression of someone who had done something difficult and had come out the other side of it. He had told his family. The telling had gone better than mine and also not entirely well, which is the honest description of how these things often go, not the worst, but not without cost. He had come to find me when he got back to Bangalore. He had sat in the rented room and looked at what I was building and said, "I want to work on this." "Why?" I had said. "Because it's real," he said. "Because you built it like it's real, and because I've been watching you build things for 2 years and I know how you work." "I can't pay you properly yet," I said. "I know," he said. "That's okay for now." That was 8 years ago. Part 4, what we built. I want to tell you about what the company became, because the company is the container for everything else, and you need to understand the container. The company was called Neela, named for the river in Tamil Nadu, which I had chosen because rivers go where they go regardless of what is on either bank, and because the name felt right for something that was supposed to connect things. Data integration infrastructure, for the companies that needed their systems to talk to each other and whose existing solutions were inadequate. Not glamorous, not the kind of technology that made headlines about changing the world. The kind that made businesses function correctly and that, when it was right, was invisible in the best way. Vikram and I built it for 3 years before we had our first significant client. Those 3 years were the hardest years of my life in the specific way of building something that is not yet proven and sustaining belief in it when the evidence is still thin. We had failures. We had a year where I thought we had been wrong about everything. We had conversations at 1 in the morning about whether to continue and what continuing would cost, and what not continuing would mean. We continued. In year 4, something changed. Not dramatically, gradually, the way things change when what you have built finally reaches the people who needed it. Clients came. The product did what it was supposed to do. The team grew, carefully, one person at a time, the people I wanted rather than the people who were available. In year 6, we raised a Series A that made what we had built real in the way that financial validation makes things real. In year 7, we moved to the building. The building was in a part of Bangalore that had become the center of the technology industry in the city, an office tower that we took 2 floors of, more space than we had ever had, the specific feeling of arriving somewhere that you had been working toward for a long time. The building had a billboard on its facade, a large one facing the road. My head of marketing had suggested, for the Series A announcement, putting up something that connected the company's story to a face, the founder's face, the human story behind the technology. I had resisted for a long time. I did not like announcements. I did not like putting my face on things. Eventually, I had agreed. The billboard went up in month 3 of the new building. A photograph, my face, the company name, a line about what we were building. It was on a road in Bangalore. It was also, as it happened, on a road that my mother would travel when she came to visit her sister, my aunt, who had moved to Bangalore 4 years earlier. I had not known this. Part 5, the filing. I need to tell you about Vikram and me more carefully, because the professional story and the personal story are not separate, and I have been telling them as if they are. We had been building Neela together for 7 years. 7 years of working alongside someone is a long time, long enough that you know how a person thinks before they speak, long enough that you can read the quality of a silence, long enough that the distinction between professional and personal becomes something you maintain by choice rather than because the distinction is naturally there. I had been maintaining it by choice. Not because I was unaware of what I was maintaining. I had been aware for, I want to be precise, approximately 4 years. 4 years of filing things with the specific discipline of someone who understood why certain things could not be acted on without careful thought. The professional stakes were real. The company we had built together was real. The years of work were real. I was not going to do something that risked any of it without being certain, and certainty required a level of honesty that I had been working toward and had not yet arrived at. Vikram was, I will say this, and let it say what it says, the person who had been most present in my life for 7 years, through the difficult years and the good ones, through the funding conversations and the year I thought we had been wrong about everything. He had been in the rented room when I was building the first version, and he was in the glass-walled office on the 6th floor of the building now. He was also carrying something. I had watched him carry it for years the way I had watched at the startup, not the family thing that had been resolved, partially, when he had gone back to Hyderabad. Something else. Something in the specific vicinity of what I was also carrying. I had not said anything. Neither had he. We had both been maintaining the distinction by choice. Part 6, the morning. I want to tell you about the Tuesday morning in March, 8 years after the birthday party, because that morning is the hinge of the story. I was in the office early. This was standard for me. The first hour before the building filled was the most productive hour, and I protected it the way you protect the things that work. I had coffee and the overnight reports and the particular quiet of a large space before it becomes occupied. Vikram arrived at 8:30, also standard. He came to my office the way he always came to my office, not knocking because we had stopped knocking years ago, the familiarity of people who have shared a professional space for a long time. He had his own coffee. He sat in the chair across from my desk that was his chair in the same way the corner table at the coffee place was my corner table. "There's a car parked outside the building," he said. "Okay," I said, not paying full attention. "It's been there for 20 minutes," he said. "The driver says the passenger got out and has been standing on the pavement looking at the billboard." I looked up. "Who is it?" I said. "Security doesn't know her," he said. "She's just standing there." I looked at him. Something moved in me, a specific thing, a feeling I had not felt in 8 years, but recognized immediately the way you recognize something from a long time ago. "What does she look like?" I said carefully. He described her, briefly, accurately. I set down my coffee. I stood up. I went to the window that faced the road. She was there, 8 years older, standing on the pavement looking up at my face on the building. Her hand was over her mouth. She was not moving. My mother. Part 7, the pavement. I went downstairs. Not dramatically, I took the lift, walked through the lobby, went through the glass doors. The morning was doing its Tuesday things. The city was in its stride. She was on the pavement where Vikram had described, and she heard the door and she turned. We looked at each other. 8 years is a long time. Long enough for someone to have become different and to still be entirely recognizable. She was 63. She looked smaller than I remembered, which is what always happens when you see parents after long absences. The figure that occupied so much internal space is always physically less than the interior version. Her hair was fully gray now. She was dressed carefully, the way she always dressed when she was somewhere unfamiliar. Her hand was still at her mouth. I stood on the pavement 2 meters from her, and I waited. "Aditya," she said. My name. The way she said it, I had not heard my name in her voice in 8 years. "Amma," I said. The word came out before I decided to say it. The body remembering things the mind has been managing. She looked at the billboard above the building, then at me, then at the building, then at me again. "This is yours," she said, not a question. "Yes," I said. "You built this," she said. "Yes," I said. She looked at me for a long time. "I'm here to visit Meena Akka," she said, my aunt's name. "She lives." "I know where she lives," I said. Silence. "The driver took the wrong road," she said. "We came this way by mistake." "Okay," I said. She looked at the building again. "You have 300 employees," she said. "Meena told me, she didn't tell me," she stopped. "She didn't know I was in this building," I said. "I haven't told her which road." My mother looked at me. 8 years, she said. "Yes," I said. Her eyes were doing something I had not seen them do before. Not the controlled grief of the party, something different. Something that was not yet resolved into a single thing. "Can I?" she started. I looked at her on the pavement. This woman who had said what she had said on a Saturday evening in March, who had turned back to her guests and accepted a gift from her sister, who had let 8 years pass. "Come inside," I said. "I'll make coffee." Part 8, the coffee. Vikram was not in my office when I brought her up. He had seen us from the window, I was certain of that, and he had made himself absent with the particular tact that was one of his genuine qualities, knowing when a space needed to be cleared and clearing it without making the clearing visible. My mother sat in the chair across from my desk. She looked at the office, the glass walls, the view, the specific evidence of what had been built here. She looked at it the way my father might have looked at it, I thought, with the specific attention of someone who is understanding something that has been built in their absence. I made coffee, the proper filter coffee, the kind from the machine we had in the office because I had never been able to drink any other kind. I set it in front of her. She wrapped her hands around the cup. "Tell me," she said, "from the beginning." I looked at her. "The beginning," I said. "From when you left," she said. "Tell me what happened." So I told her, not everything, not in one sitting, not in one morning, but the shape of it. The rented room, the first version of Neela. Vikram arriving at the door, the years of building. The year I thought we had been wrong, the series A, the building. She listened with the complete attention she had always given to things that mattered to her, which was the quality of her that I had missed without fully nomming that I had missed it. When I finished, she said, "Are you happy?" I looked at her. "Are you asking me that specifically?" I said. "I'm asking you everything," she said. "I'm asking about the work and about your life. Are you happy?" I sat with the question. "I am building something real," I said. "I have people around me who are real. I am, yes. I am happier than I have been." She nodded. "You built all of this," she said, "without me." "Yes," I said. "You didn't need me," she said. "Not an accusation, something else." "I needed you," I said. "At 26, I needed you very much. You weren't there." She looked at the coffee. "I was wrong," she said quietly. I waited. "I was wrong and I was afraid, and the afraid made me wrong in a worse way," she said. And then time passed, and the time made it harder to undo, and more time passed, and I didn't know how. "You could have called," I said. "I know," she said. "I couldn't." "Why not?" I said. "Because I was afraid you would say no," she said, "after what I had done." I looked at her. This was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me in my presence. More honest than anything at the birthday party. The specific honesty of someone who has run out of walls to stand behind. "I wouldn't have said no," I said. She looked at me. "I know that now," she said. "I think I knew it before. I was still afraid." Part 9. Vikarayam and the evening. He found me at the end of the day. My mother had left mid-morning. She had her aunt to visit, the original reason for the trip, and we had agreed that she would come back. Not a dramatic reconciliation, an agreement. She would come back. We would continue. The 8 years would not be undone in one morning, but the door was open in a way it had not been. I was in my office at 6 in the evening when Vikram knocked, actually knocked, for the first time in years. "Come in," I said. He came in, sat in his chair, looked at me. "The woman on the pavement," he said. "My mother," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "How was it?" he said. I told him. The shape of the conversation, what she had said, what I had said. He listened with the full attention he always brought to things that mattered. When I finished, he said, "She came back." "Not planned," I said. "Wrong road." "Wrong road," he said, "but she got out of the car." I looked at him. "She got out of the car," I said. "Yes, she stood on the pavement for 20 minutes. "That's not an accident," he said. "Wrong road is an accident. Standing on the pavement for 20 minutes is a choice." I sat with that. "She was afraid I'd say no," I said. "I know that feeling," he said. I looked at him. He was looking at me with the expression I had been filing for 4 years, and that was, in this particular evening after a day that had already done more than most days do, harder than usual to keep filed. "Vikram," I said. "Yes," he said. "You know that feeling," I said. "What feeling specifically?" He met my eyes. "The feeling of standing outside something," he said. "Not going in because you're afraid the door will close." The office was very quiet. Outside the glass wall, the floor was emptying. The end of the day, the building settling into its evening mode. "The door closed on me at 26, I said. "It didn't collapse me. I built this instead." "I know," he said. "I've been standing outside something too," I said, "for 4 years." He was completely still. "I know that too," he said. "Why haven't you said anything?" I said. "Why haven't you?" he said. I looked at the window. "Because this," I gestured at the office, the building, the 7 years of work that surrounded us. "This is real, and I was afraid that saying something would cost something I wasn't willing to cost." "Same," he said. "And now," I said. He looked at me. "Your mother stood on the pavement for 20 minutes, he said, "because she was afraid you'd say no, and she stood there anyway." I looked at him. "I'm not going to say no," I said. Something in his expression shifted, the specific shift of something that has been held carefully for a long time and has been allowed to settle. "I know," he said. "I think I knew. I was still afraid." We looked at each other across the desk, in the quiet office at the end of a day that had rearranged several things. "I'm not going to make this complicated tonight," I said. "We have 7 years of work between us and a company that needs both of us, and I'm not going to do something that we haven't thought through." "I know," he said. "I'm not asking for tonight." "What are you asking for?" I said. "The door," he said. "Just the door open." I looked at him. The door has been open, I said. For 4 years, I've been standing outside it the same as you. He was quiet for a long moment. Then we're both inside, he said. Yes, I said. We'll think through the rest, he said. Yes, I said. Good, he said. He stood. He went to the door. He stopped. 8 years, he said, about my mother, about the building. 8 years, I said. She saw your face on the building and she stood on the pavement, he said. That means something. Yes, I said. What does it mean? He said. I thought about it. It means the picture she built collapsed, I said, and the real one was bigger than the picture. He nodded. The real one is always bigger, he said. He left. I sat in the office alone for a long time. Part 10, the distance. Here is the part that was not clean, and I want to tell it honestly. The weeks after the pavement were complicated. My mother came back. She visited twice more during her week in Bangalore, each visit slightly longer than the one before, each one slightly more honest. We were learning a new way of talking, she and I, past the version of the relationship that had existed until her 55th birthday. The new version was slower and more careful and more real. She asked about the company with the genuine questions of someone who wanted to understand. I answered them. She asked about my life, more carefully, navigating around things she was not yet ready to approach directly. I let her navigate. We were both learning the map of the new thing. On her third visit, she met Vikram briefly. He was in the office when she arrived, introduced himself, was warm and direct in the way he was with everyone. She had looked at him with a specific attention that I recognized as my mother assembling a picture. After he had gone back to his section, she had said, "How long has he been with you?" 7 years, I said. She was quiet for a moment. He's important, she said, not a question. He built Neela with me, I said. Yes, she said, and. I looked at her. Amma, I said. I'm asking, she said, not with the old walls, with the new version of her that was trying. He's important, I said carefully. She nodded, slowly. I'm trying, she said. I want you to know that I'm trying. I know, I said. I can see it. It's going to take time, she said. I have a lot to undo, things I believed for a long time. I know, I said. But I'm not going anywhere, she said. I came back to Bangalore, I stood on the pavement. She looked at me. I'm not going anywhere. I looked at my mother. Okay, I said. Okay, she said. The distance with Vikram was different. We had said what we had said in the evening office, and then the professional days had continued, because professional days continue regardless of what has been said in evening offices. We were both, I think, being careful, the care of two people who have acknowledged something and are now thinking through what it means and what it requires. He was slightly more present than before, not dramatically, slightly. A cup of coffee brought to my office without occasion. A question about something not related to work, asked at the end of a day when there was no professional reason for it. Small things that were not small. I was also being careful. I had a company with 300 employees and a co-founder relationship that was the structural spine of everything we had built, and I was not going to do anything that put that structure at risk without being certain and without thinking through what the honesty of it required. My head of operations, a man named Suresh who had been with us for 4 years and who knew both of us as well as anyone, came to my office one afternoon and said nothing. Just looked at me with the expression of someone who has seen something and is deciding whether to say it. What? I said. Nothing, he said. Suresh, I said. You've been different for 3 weeks, he said. Both of you. Good different or bad different, I said. He thought about it. Real different, he said. I looked at him. That's accurate, I said. He nodded and went back to his work. Part 11, the conversation. I went to find him. Not in the office. After hours, the building mostly empty, the specific quiet of the place we had built when the people who made it alive had gone home. He was in the product section, which he sometimes worked from late when he needed the space. He looked up when I came in, set down what he was doing. "I've been thinking for 3 weeks," I said. "I know," he said. "Me too." "The professional structure," I said. "The company, everything we've built." "Yes," he said. "I take all of that seriously," I said. "Everything it means and everything it requires." "I know you do," he said. "I do too." "And I've thought about what honesty looks like here," I said. "What it costs and what it's worth." He was looking at me with that expression, the one that had been in the filing system for 4 years. "What did you conclude?" he said. "That the cost is manageable," I said. "If we're both honest about it, about what we owe to the work and to the people here and to what we've built." "I've concluded the same thing," he said. "We're careful about it," I said. "We've been careful about everything for 7 years," he said. "We know how to be careful." I looked at him across the product section. This person who had arrived at a rented room door 7 years ago and had said, "I want to work on this," and who had been present for every version of the building since. "My mother asked if you were important," I said. He was quiet. "What did you say?" he said. "I said you built Neela with me," I said. "That's true," he said. "I also said you were important," I said. He was looking at me. "What did she say?" he said. "She said she was trying," I said. "That she had a lot to undo, but she was not going anywhere." He absorbed this. "That's something," he said. "Yes," I said, "it is." We stood in the products section, in the quiet building. "Vikram," I said. "Yes," he said. "I stopped filing," I said. 3 weeks ago in the evening office, I stopped." "I know," he said. "I was there." "I'm telling you clearly," I said. "Not in the context of an emotional evening or a complicated day. Clearly, you are important, not because of the work with the work separate, you specifically." He looked at me for a long moment. 7 years, he said. 7 years, I said, and I would have said it sooner if I had been less careful. "You were right to be careful," he said. "About the professional part," I said. "Not about the other part. I should have said the other part sooner." He came closer. Not dramatically, just the removal of the professional distance, the space between us becoming the honest space rather than the managed one. "I have been standing outside the door for 4 years," he said, "and you told me tonight that the door has been open." "It has been open," I said. "I'm telling you to come in." He looked at me, and the last of the careful went out of his expression, and the full version of him was present in the room. "I'm in," he said. Part 12, What the Building Means. 8 years after my mother said what she said on a Saturday evening in March. "I want to tell you what the building means now, from the inside, with all of it visible. Neela has 412 employees. The product works. The clients are real. We are building a second offering that will take 2 years to do correctly, and that I believe is the right next thing. The work is the work, still the most stable thing, still the place where I am most fully myself, still the thing I come back to every morning with the specific feeling of someone who has found what they were supposed to be doing." Vikram and I had the careful conversations about the professional structure, what was owed to it, what honesty required. We had them with the same directness we had brought to every hard conversation about the company for 7 years. We brought in Suresh, who received the information with the expression of someone who had seen it coming for 3 weeks. We made the structural adjustments that were responsible. We did it correctly. And then we stopped managing the other thing. It is, I want to tell you, the specific relief of not filing anymore, of being in the work alongside the person who is also beside you and not maintaining a distinction that costs energy you need for other things. The work is the same. The person is the same. The distinction is gone. My mother came back to Bangalore 3 months after the pavement morning. Not by wrong road this time. Planned. She called and said she was coming to visit Meena Akka and she wanted to see me. She came to the office. She saw Neela properly, walked through the floors with me, spoke to some of the team, looked at what had been built with the full attention she had always given to things that mattered. At the end, she sat in my office and she said, "Tell me about him." I looked at her. "Vikram," she said. "Yes," I said. "Tell me about him," she said. "Not about the company, about him." I told her, not everything, not yet, the shape of it, 7 years of building together, the rented room, what he had said when he arrived, the 4 years of filing and the evening office and the careful conversations and the structural adjustments done correctly. She listened. When I finished, she said, "Is he good to you?" I looked at my mother. "Yes," I said. She nodded, slowly, working through something that was still difficult and that she was doing the work on anyway. "I want to meet him," she said, "properly." "He's here," I said. "He's always here." She almost smiled. "I know," she said. "I can tell." Clapperboard final hook. She said what she said on a Saturday evening in March and turned back to her guests, and the party continued. I walked out through the garden my father had planted, and down the road I had walked to school on for 12 years, and I kept walking. I built something in the walking. I built it in a rented room, and through a year where I thought I had been wrong about everything, and through a Series A and into a glass-walled building on a road in Bangalore that had a billboard on its facade. 8 years later, she came to visit her sister by the wrong road and stood on the pavement looking at my face on the building with her hand over her mouth. And I went downstairs. And I said, "Come inside, I'll make coffee." The door she closed at her 55th birthday is open now. Not fully, not without the work of undoing, but open. And inside the building, where my face is on the billboard, there is a person who came to a rented room door 7 years ago and said, "I want to work on this," and who has not left. The filing is done. The door has been open for 4 years. He is in. And my mother sat in my office and said, "Tell me about him," and I told her the shape of it, and she said, "I want to meet him properly," and I said, "He's always here," and she almost smiled. Almost. That is enough for now. Almost is where everything real begins. If this story found something you needed, if someone once closed a door on you and you built something in the walking away like it, share it with someone who is still walking and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what did you build after someone closed a door on you? And one last question. 6 months from now, my mother comes back to Bangalore, and this time she has dinner with me, and Vikram is there. And something happens at that dinner, something small, something my mother does, something that neither Vikram nor I expected from her. And afterward, walking back through the building, Vikram says something to me about it. Should I tell you what he said? Part 2 is coming. Eyes. Subscribe. You will not want to miss it. The Revenge Chronicles.